Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today is going to be a quick, as hopefully as quick as I can be, first impressions video on a quiet carry knife. Now, the Drift is very well known, very well done, very well loved, but never a knife that appealed to me because of its rather small size. However, when Quiet Carry announced that they were going to be doing a larger version, I was pretty stoked, and especially when I heard about the LC. So the Drift LC is what you're looking at here, and the L stands for large and the C stands for contoured. So this is bigger than the original Drift. It's kind of more in my wheelhouse. And I have to say, I'm really glad that they did this because I've heard only ever good things about Quiet Carry. And just the problem was they had nothing that was really compelling to me because they tend to be on the smaller side of the spectrum. Okay, this is still not a big knife, but it's big enough to be interesting to me. And in fact, now that I've had this and I've been able to get my hands on it and play with it a little bit, I have to say more than a little interesting. This is actually rather impressive. So let me go ahead and give you features and functions and stuff like that, and then I'll get into size, weight, and my overall first impression. Okay, up front we have an LC200 blade in a stonewash finish. It is a drop point with a very high flat grind there. The blade stock is not super thick. I would have liked to see something a little bit thicker, but as it is, I have no real issue with the blade stock being what it is. I don't know. The handle is quite substantial and very, confidence inspiring, and I feel like the blade could be just a little bit thinner. Keep the same edge dimension, but just give me slightly thicker blade stock. Um, Otherwise, absolutely fantastic. The steel here is LC200N, which is virtually corrosion resistant, impervious to corrosion, I guess we could say. It does hold a very good edge. It's not as good as some of the more recent steels that are out there, but nonetheless, very, very good steel overall. Um, and so I have no real complaint about that whatsoever. Again, my only minor, and I mean very minor, guys, is the blade thickness. Okay, as it stands, I think this blade thickness is fine, and I absolutely love the knife overall. Um, so that's what we're dealing with up front. As we move back here, we have a very, very nicely done action. This is on ceramic bearings. It is a titanium frame lock, and the lock bar is, I mean, actually everything on this is very, very comfortable. I just feel like that's the best or the easiest way to describe this knife. When you actuate that lock, it moves nicely. It naturally goes to the position you want it to be in. As you close the blade, you're past the detent right away. The action is incredibly smooth, very hydraulic. Everything you'd want it to be in terms of um, the fidget factor locking and unlocking. Now, I will say this is definitely a knife that's designed for a Spidey flick, and it does take a little bit of getting used to. First of all, you got to keep your fingers off that lock bar. If you have any lock bar pressure at all, it really, really amplifies that detent to the point of some discomfort. But quickly, you kind of figure out where to hold the knife to get a really good deployment every time. You can thumb roll the knife, and again, you've got to keep your hands off the lock bar, and then it works just fine. Uh, uh, and and the knife will definitely let you know if you don't have your hands off the lock bar. Thinking of that lock bar, check out the titanium side of this knife. The G10 side is very handsome. The show side is really, really nicely done. Blue and black layered G10. There are other colorways available as well. But then if you turn over to the titanium side, it is equally attractive. And that's not true of a lot of knives, right? Like we talk about this as the show side because, it's kind of the feature side, if you will, what you're going to see on in most of the pictures and stuff like that. But this is one of those knives, and there are a few of these out there that look just as good on the lock side, and in fact, maybe even better. There's some really nice design elements going on here, as well as functional elements. So we see the dots that are typical of Quiet Carry. That's very nice. We've got great texturing on this layered G10. It is, of course, 3D machined or contoured, as the name of the knife implies. Let me close it so you can see from both sides. And it feels really, really good in hand. I've got to give a lot of credit to Quiet Carry for, as in their design phase, they must have really spent some time because it feels just great. The lock bar is comfortable. The detent is pretty well dialed in. Again, of course, it can get stiff if you're putting pressure on it. Backspacer here with a single side lanyard option. Okay, so the hole is there that ties into the lanyard. You've got the accessible screw there for the 3D machined, but also deep carry titanium clip. And I have to say, they've done a great job with this. This is also on a couple of other quiet carry models. And it's ideal. It really is about the best implementation of a milled deep carry clip that I've seen. All right. We also have some nice milling on the titanium. First of all, you can see they retained some of the machining lines here, which looks great and adds to the texturing. But then they also went ahead and added similar texturing, sort of the diamond texturing that you see here on the G10. It's also carried over onto the titanium. And this is a tough balance to strike, and I think they've done a pretty good job here. Um, you know, it's easy to sort of go overboard with design elements and make something a little bit too busy, but they've kind of nailed it here in terms of just getting the right amount of uh, the right amount of milling, the right amount of detail to add visual interest to the knife. And of course, it's more than just visual interest, it's also adding texturing, which is very nicely done. The deployment is, of course, only by that hole. And others have commented, and I will say this, that especially, in the first, little while, the first hour or so that you're trying to mess with this knife, it's a little bit difficult to figure out exactly how to catch the deployment hole. They've nicely chamfered this, all right, which you may think, come on, zoom in, there we go, which you may think, oh, that's a nice finishing touch that makes things a little bit smooth. But remember, you want to catch this with the corner of your finger if you're going to be able to spidey flick it. And as you can see, it's very possible, but it just takes a little bit of getting used to. And it actually, would have probably been better off without bothering to chamfer or doing it just a little bit less, leaving that edge a little bit sharper. Not a lot, just a little bit sharper, so it would catch your finger a little better. And if you're used to, typical Spyderco stuff, I do have my Military 2 here. It just catches so easily because it's almost just a 90-degree corner there. Moving on to the size and weight on this guy, pretty darn good. I suspect that I mean, there's a bit of a trend towards smaller knives right now, and I get that companies don't want to buck that trend too hard because you want to sell what people are looking for. And so this isn't a huge knife. It could actually be a little bit bigger and still be quite good. I think you could probably even push this up to like 8.5 inches. But as it is, it's perfectly fine. We've got 7 and 15/16, so just a hair under 8 inches, 3 and 3/8 of blade length. Okay, so just a little less than 3.5 inches. When this knife is closed, it comes in at 4.5 inches long. The grip area is one of the great features here. So this is not a huge knife, and yet you get a very generous grip area of 3 and 7/8, so almost 4 full inches. Even if your hand was bigger than mine, and I take a size large glove, if you take maybe an extra large glove, you would probably still be quite comfortable gripping this knife. The weight on this is not super duper lightweight. It is a titanium frame lock after all, with a steel liner under the G10. And so the weight on this is 4.7 ounces. So that's pushing the weight a little bit. As far as I'm concerned, that's not a huge issue, but that's the number. And if you feel like, and maybe that's pushing the weight a little for a knife of this size, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not uncomfortable or unwieldy at all. And I do perhaps have a slightly higher tolerance for that than some others. All right, my overall thoughts on this knife are very, very impressive. The action is great given that it takes a teeny bit of getting used to. The ergonomics are phenomenal. The materials are great. The design is very, very compelling. Although, we might say most of the design work was already done because they were modeling this off the original Drift. But I think they've done a really, really nice job. Now, there is a regular I mean, a non-contoured extra large drift. To me, the contoured was a little more appealing, and I was able to get my hands on one up here in Canada. And of course, the colorway is just perfect on this one. But there are a number. There's a plain black one. There's a orange and black one, I think, or red and black. I'm trying to remember. But there are a couple of other options here. And I think there might still be some available on Quiet Carry's website. I did go over there for a few minutes a couple days ago, and now it's just evading me whether or not you could just order one right at the time or whether it was like a pre-order or something. Anyway, I think these are somewhat available. So that's pretty nice to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will say, go ahead and check those channel sponsors. It is quite a big help to the channel when you do that. We will talk to you soon.